One is that most of the people there who had complaints were complaining about the speed of traffic there. And the second is that the planner said that it was not possible to change the speed limits from the currently posted 35 miles an hour to more appropriate 30 miles an hour. And I did some research and I found that Mass General Laws 90, Section 17C, which was approved in 2016, allows cities and towns to set their own speed limits, and particularly settled in business districts, and down to as low as 25 miles an hour. And for the town, for this town, the appropriate board would be the Board of Selectmen who would do that. So I had an email conversation with the town planner, Jesse, and he provided me more information, but still insisted that it was an arduous process to get the speed limits changed. Then I went to speak with the chief of police, just find out where they sat on this, and he said that they also weren't aware of how on earth they could change the speed limits, because apparently it's tough. And he said, but they agreed that a 30 mile an hour speed limit would be quite appropriate in that business district. As a matter of fact, state law in fact says 30 miles an hour is unreasonable in a business district unless otherwise posted. So I'd like the Board of Selectmen to take some action on this and getting 30 mile an hour zone posted in the Stow Lower Village Business District, and it seems that this is an appropriate time since the construction is underway, and it would be a good thing to get it done now as part of when new signage goes up, they can put new signs up for lower speed limit. And I'll bring this up at the town meeting when the additional funding for that project is going to be approved. So that's all I have to say.
Okay. What's the speed limit now?
Speed limit is 35 now, and it's posted on signs that are way out from the district, not adjacent to it.
I just want to say thank you. It's not on our agenda, so we can't discuss it substantively, but you know what we'll do, we'll add it to, there are several roads in town where people have complained about speeds, and we're trying to work on that. I've seen the email correspondence from you and Jesse. I know his position, which is basically, it requires an engineering study because it's a statutorily set road. And I don't think anybody disagrees with your main point, which is that speed's gotta lower.
Yeah.
And in fact, I thought that one of the entire points of doing the project in Lower Village is to lower speeds.
I agree.
And I actually thought that people don't drive slower because of speeds on the signs. I know I never even look at speed limit signs. I drive what I think the road can take. And I thought that what they were doing there was what they call traffic calming, and what I call just making the road look a little more narrow and crowded. So everybody agrees with where you want to get.
Yeah.
We just got to figure out the best way to get there.
Well, I believe that the Mass General Laws now allows the Board of Selectmen to make that decision.
I guess there's a little debate about that, but thank you.
Yeah,
Mr. Burke.
Yes, up until 2016, when Governor Baker passed the Municipal Modernization Act,
yeah.
it was impossible for a municipality to change the speed limits on public highways, such as Route 117. Since 2016, there is a vehicle, but it is not just as simple as our board passing a new bylaw. What I would suggest with my chair's guidance is that it might be something that can be addressed in the first instance by the Safe Streets Committee.
Well, yeah, that's what I meant by we'll add it to the list of roads we have, those discussions have to continue.
This street is different, and it is a business district.
No,
Yeah. Any other street doesn't, the ruling doesn't apply to those, since they're, could be considered thickly settled maybe, but that's even tougher to decide. This is clearly a business district.
Yeah, I think that Mr. Burke is making the same point that Jesse made, which is that it does require an engineering study.
I don't know that.
Yeah. I believe that's only for the 85th percentile measurement. But that's, I don't believe that's required for.
Well, I'll ask Complete Streets to take a closer look at that.
Okay.
I think we've just probably discussed this too much for
Yeah.
something that's not on the agenda,
I
but
agree.
I appreciate you coming by.
Yeah, well,
And
thank you.
again, everybody's trying to get to the same goal you've got,
I
it's
agree.
just a question of how.
Yeah, it's, what's the state doing for us?
Right, well,
They passed the
Thank you.
2016 municipal
Thank you very
modernization
much.
act.
thank you.
Said, let's just do it.
Chairman's comments.
The problem is the wording in the statutes
I
and
know.
Mass DOT's interpretation of it.
This is correct. So, Chairman's comments, I just have a few things. Let's recall, if you want to have any conversations are great if you can have them out in the hall. It's remarkably distracting when you're trying to talk up here. Stow Cleanup Day is this Saturday, the 27th, from 7 a.m. to 12:30 p.m. There's usually a table set up on the common at the lower village, and it will be there. I think, yeah, that is where we gave the permit for. I'm confusing it with the garden club. On the lower village. And you get little yellow bags and you say what section of road you're gonna clean up, and you go out and you do it, and it's a great annual thing. And just to let everyone know that the annual town meeting warrant will be the final version will be available tomorrow morning on the town's website, and it will be delivered to every home in Stow with the Stow and Bolton Independent. I assume this is the free edition of the Independent? Yes,
Sure
this
is.
is the free edition, so it goes to every home in Stow, and we appreciate the Independent doing that every year. And just wanna note that on May 19th, which is Springfest weekend, is the now annual Run for the Kids, presented by the Stow PTO. We issued a permit for that a few meetings ago. 7:30 in the morning to 8:15, that's your bid pickup and registration. And the running starts at 8:30, the 8:30 a.m. is a 500-yard dash for little kids 6 and under, 8:45, the 1 mile run, 9 o'clock an award ceremony, and at 9:50 the 5K race walkers start. 10 a.m. the 5K race starts, and at 11 a.m. is the 5K awards race ceremony. Fees $5 for kids 6 and under, $15 for kids ages 7 to 12, $25 for those 13 or up. Brian, that means you'd be $25. Just, so that's about it for chairman's comments. Correspondence, did any of my colleagues have any comments on, did they see anything in correspondence that they want on a future agenda? Okay, seeing and hearing nothing, we will move on from that. And I see Pam, and we're here to ready to just talk about the bonds for the Pompo Fire Station Community Center.
Yeah.
Pam, come on up. You might wanna give a little explanation for the sake of the people at home. We've done this before, so I think we're familiar with it, but just so everybody
It's a
knows.
little more complicated this time.
Okay.
It's, we did a permanent bond issue, so we have a lot of papers to sign. It's for the Fire Station Community Center, and $500,000 that was remaining on the elementary school that we didn't borrow before, and $260,000 for the Fitzpatrick land. We went out to bid for $9,535,000, and we did really well. We got 10 bids, which we've never done before, as I
Yeah.
remember. It was bought by FTN Financial Capital Markets, an interest rate of 2.79%. And they gave us a premium of $480,000, which, under the Municipal Modernization Act, you can use to reduce the principal amount. So even though we're getting the $9.5 million, we only have to pay back $9,055,000, which helps.
It's pretty good.
So it's actually was very well. Our financial advisor was so happy, she said it was a really good rate.
Yeah,
But,
that's great.
AAA at work.
yeah,
Which is
and
good.
Standard & Poor's reviewed us again, and they confirmed we were still AAA, which is the best bond rating.
Yes. Is that okay?
Yeah.
Anybody have any questions? Mr. Burke?
No, I was just, Mr. Wrigley, our town administrator, pointed out that we are maintaining our AAA bond rating, and I wanted to give him and our treasurer credit for that, but it's already been done.
Mr. Ryan?
One of the things I was just a little confused about is one of the things that we have to sign for the certify the vote. It mentioned 23 million. I just heard the 9,055,000 that you were talking about, and 9,624, and then all down below there was interest rates of 5%, then it went to 3%, and then on the front it says 2.798. So I got a little confused.
Yeah, each year of the bond is 25 years, has a different face value interest rate, and then they take that premium that we got, and they calculate a net interest. The financial advisor does it for us. And actually, the premium was a little bit more. We're gonna receive 9.624 from this FTN company. And
Mhm.
some of the costs, some of it plays the borrowing costs, like the attorney and standard reports we have to pay, and the financial advisor.
Does that answer your question, Mr.
Well,
Mayor?
And the 23 million,
23 I was curious about.
I think that's how much we authorized to borrow on the school project in the beginning. But
Pompo,
the
no.
the Pompo Center, this one. Oh,
No, they,
No.
no,
No?
and that's why
Oh,
Ponca and Center, all this would have been rebuilding Center School.
Right.
But I think, the whole project cost was about 30-some-odd million, and we paid for about half of it. Maybe, I just wanted to find out what the 23 million had to do
So-
with the 9 million, and so on.
This, what he's looking at here has to do with the rebuild of Center based on the dates of the town meetings, 2007, 2009. We didn't, so that has to be the Center School project.
Yeah, and that. Not being paid by the grant. But we've already borrowed most of the money for the school. There's just the 500,000 on this one.
Right, but I don't
Oh,
think,
not quite.
I don't think we borrowed 24 million.
No, we did, I think that was approved at all those town meetings if you had everything up together.
Can you hold off on this until May 6th?
No. I can check on that tomorrow and I just need the clerk to sign that one particular document.
So, that would be, Don, who's not here.
Oh,
No, I thought I'm the clerk. I'm the clerk.
Oh, you're the clerk, that's right. So we could vote to authorize you to do this once.
The numbers are checked.
Once the numbers are checked and you get comfortable with it. Is that all right?
Yeah, I just wanted to make, when I started seeing 23 and 9.
I think you're right.
I just wanted to make sure that, we know what we're
No, I think you're right.
signing our lives away for.
The other document was right. Yeah. So I think, it's possible, some cutting and pasting. Why don't we do that? Why don't we authorize the clerk to sign the vote document?
When I clarify what the 20.
When you clarify
I can email
that.
that to you tomorrow. I'll be there.
I think a better thing might be to give it to Maureen
Yeah.
and let, and
Her
then Maureen, you
espresso.
can let Ingeborg know that it's ready, and you can CC me. And then,
I can come in Thursday morning.
and then Ingeborg can come in when it's convenient for
There's
her.
one piece she has to sign.
Is that all right?
Yep.
Mr. Burke?
Mr. Chair, would you like a motion to
I
that
would,
effect?
thank you.
Mr. Chair, I move to approve, subject to clarification as to the actual document and later signature by our clerk, Ms. Ingeborg Hegeman-Clark, the sale of a 55,000 25-year bond dated May 1, 2019 to FTN Financial Capital Markets for $9,624,199.81, and I also move to accept the detailed vote of the Board of Selectmen supplied by bond counsel regarding this bond issue, subject to the same previous caveats.
Second.
Motion been made and seconded to authorize our clerk to sign the bond and vote document for the 9 the approximately $9 million 25-year bond for the, I'm not even gonna say for what, but for the Pompous City Community Center project.
No, I think Center School project. That's the,
No. It's mostly the fire station community center.
it's mostly the fire station.
Yeah.
Which is why that's
So-
probably wrong.
You're bundling up the bonds.
Yeah, we had,
Okay.
yeah. We just added in a couple of the little
Okay.
things to say.
Well,
Okay, my other
for the
problem is
various
the
bonds.
town clerk's supposed to witness us, and I don't see her here.
The actual motion does not specify, so that's good. So, motions are made to sign the bond and vote document.
You need-
Further discussion.
you need witness notice
Well, I need town clerk.
specifically.
Yeah, I mean, she can watch it on Stow TV to verify that we all signed it, I guess.
Well, we're
She-
authorizing the clerk to sign.
No, that was that, but the town clerk has to witness all the other signatures,
Yes.
so,
Yes. Okay, so
Was
the,
she notified?
yes.
so the motion is,
Something terrible about that.
yeah, the motion is to authorize the clerk to sign the bond and the signature document.
Yeah,
Right,
the
but
vote,
we've
the
gotta
vote of
sign
the Board of
the-
Selectmen.
Right.
These documents and get them notarized presumably.
Subject to clarification, if the halfway around, you can do that.
Right. Wait, the board signs it. Further discussion. Seeing and hearing none, all those,
I just want to say, good catch, Mr. Ryan.
yes, very good catch. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, nay. And that's it. Okay, thank you, Pam.
So do you wanna sign the rest of these?
Sign those, they don't need to all come in and sign that one.
No, this
Okay.
vote is just
Okay, this is an.
Ingeborg,
Okay.
yeah.
Sure. So, we just authorized the clerk to sign both documents.
No. Well, you did, that's right.
That was the motion.
That was the motion.
All right, we're going to move to
And so
sign the
now we
bond
have to amend that vote.
Let me see it.
Because we have,
Let me
well,
see the-
these are all the bonds, and then there's all kinds of. I don't think anywhere else it mentions that $9 million. $22 million.
So, I think on the whole, what I'm gonna do, I think we're a little uncomfortable signing here right now. Let's just double check it. I think what I'll do is I'll entertain a motion to, after the bonds are double checked, to leave them in the selectman's office, and the selectman will come in and sign it, so that,
That may cause a problem because Linda has to witness it and
I
notarize
don't know
them.
if she'll be here.
If she could see it on TV, she would know that we have signed them willingly, shall we say.
so I'm gonna do this. I'm gonna postpone this item and take up the other people who are here,
And I'll go downstairs and the 23 number.
and just double check, right,
Yes.
thank you. Thanks, Pam.
Thank you.
I like to shift things around depending on who is here. So, I'm not sure who I got. I know I got Bob here, but he's probably waiting for Don. So, sir, you're here on
Second Chance Cars.
Second Chance Cars, okay, fine. And, Miss, you're here on
A liquor license?
a liquor
One day.
license. The one for which, Decibels?
Springfest.
Pardon?
Springfest.
Springfest. Why don't we do that first? You wanna come up? Hi.
Hi.
I'm Jim Salvi.
I'm Sherry.
Nice to meet you.
Tom Ryan?
Hi, Tom.
Bill Ridley.
Hi, Bill. Hi, nice to meet you.
Hi, Sherry.
Hi, Wendy.
So you guys have done this before.
I'm not 100% sure.
Okay. Why don't you tell us what the liquor license is for?
So we're bringing something back into Springfest. I guess back in the day, there used to be a band at the town hall, sort of kind of like a barn dance sort of theme. And we thought we would bring that back. We're going to use a band that's in town. It's called Hip Anonymous. It's a Stow band, or the leader of the band is in Stow, and he wants to be part of Springfest. We really don't have a great fit for him, so we thought we'd have a Saturday night event. And so he's a jazz band, and we thought it would be nice to have something for the older crowd. Springfest is more for the young kids, and this might be a nice event for the older crowd, have a nice evening out, have a couple cocktails, maybe some hors d'oeuvres, and maybe listen to jazz.
It's gonna be at the pump up?
It would be at the community center.
Okay. And how are you gonna be serving the liquor? Is somebody licensed or just somebody who's gonna be on your own, serving your own?
We
or-
are going to be tips certified, someone will
Okay.
be tips certified. We looked into getting liability insurance. Maureen passed along some information on that. And it's, really going to be, a light fare. It's only going to be an hour and a half
Okay.
that they play. Cheese, crackers, we'll have food. But yeah, we'll have somebody tips certified there.
Can I ask you something? It's an
Sure.
issue that we're struggling with.
Sure.
Roughly how much does it cost to get someone who's tip certified for an event that's a few hours long like this?
I went online and it's a 3-hour course and it's $50.
Okay.
But I already have somebody that is tips certified already. If she can't work the event, then I will find somebody who is, and if not, I'd become tip certified.
Yeah. I'm not so concerned about you. I'm thinking other events.
Yeah,
So-
it doesn't seem to be that hard. You can go online and do an online, there's 2 ways you can do it. Either if you're selling alcohol, like in a store such as like Russell's, or
Right.
you can do it as if you're serving alcohol at a bar. And it's a 3-hour course
Okay.
online for like $50.
That's what I wanted to know. Thank you.
Yeah, sure.
One thing, and probably a question to Maureen and Bill, where the Springfest Committee is a town organization, do they have to get additional liability insurance?
Well, that's what we chatted about, because my concern is, well, what if someone left and, was drinking beforehand and we didn't know?
That is everyone's concern.
And then they get in an accident, so we looked into getting liability insurance.
I don't believe that any insurance, liability insurance, if they're named volunteers, which they would be in this case, they are a agent of the town to the degree that this is a town-sponsored event, they're volunteers for the town. If there's a charge, Maureen can confirm, then the town, in my opinion, should pay whatever that charge is. It's not, this isn't a private group, this is an organization of volunteers
Right.
that has been chartered by the town through the Board of Selectmen. I would define them as volunteers for the town.
I agree. I mean, I think whatever they're paying for the tip certification and the insurance, the town should probably, well, if we can.
My point was that, the town is giving money to Springfest.
Right.
It seemed, if,
Oh, so maybe it's coming out of that.
the money would be coming out of
Oh.
Springfest
Is that what's coming
anyway.
out of?
We will try. We don't get a whole lot. We try to make that money go as far as we can, and we come up with other ways of generating money. But yes, yeah.
We used to-
I would be shocked if there was, we carry liability insurance, and there's always this discussion with regard to alcohol.
Well,
But, my understanding under our insurance policy, but again, Maureen needs to do the due diligence here, is that we carry, if it's a town function, and I define this as a town function, these are
yes.
volunteers who are appointed by the Board of Selectmen. These are not private vendors and such, they're named
Do we need a
volunteers. They
course?
carry, they receive all the coverage that any of us would carry. And I believe, again, if it's, and is this gonna be this is sale of alcohol?
Yes, from my understanding, and correct me if I'm wrong, if you're supplying alcohol, I believe it, you have to charge for it. But, we were also putting that aside, we were also wanting to charge for it to help offset the cost of the alcohol and pay for the band as well.
So a license is required because it's sale, but I think under our policy, and Maureen I would check this with, the language going back and forth that I saw recently in the emails was more confusing than I think it needs to be, but if they're not already covered with the approval of the board and a license, which is key for our insurers, I believe they're covered for this type of activity. But even if not, the additional rider can't be more than a small amount of money for one event for a couple of hours, and it should come out of the town coffers, and whether
It's
you
coming
take
out
it
of
from
the-
the
right.
Springfest
So,
appropriation or something else.
so can we say this? This committee is doing more for a one-day liquor license than most town departments do when they have events involving the serving of alcohol on town property. And I think we want to encourage that. We're gonna be revisiting our policy as soon as Don gets back. We've all seen some materials on that. So, can we move to approve this license with the understanding that you'll work with Maureen to make sure you've got the insurance coverage you need, and to make sure that the cost of the insurance and the tip certified server is somehow being paid for by the town? And if that requires some supplemental vote at our very brief May 6th meeting,
We'll fight.
we'll find a way to do it.
Yeah.
Is that okay? Okay.
And that's it. I know going way back, I was
Yeah.
involved in the Springfest dances up in the town barn. You know, the highway department barn,
Oh,
you know, 20-some odd years ago when it first started back up. You know, all we did, we did the same thing. We got a liquor license from the town to make sure. We collected the money. It went into the Springfest fund. We used it to pay expenses for Springfest. And, you know, no big deal. I don't recall us ever getting any kind of special insurance.
But it is an evolving matter, as you know.
It is
yeah,
an
just,
evolving.
you know, we wanna make sure.
And it is a potential source of very real liability, so.
Don't want to be left uncovered, let's put
Right,
it that way.
yeah.
So I will accept a motion to approve the one-day liquor license for the Springfest Committee for May 18th from, is that 7 to 9?
Yes.
From 7 to 9, subject to the understanding that we'll verify the insurance that they need and that expenses for insurance and tip certified server are paid for by the town.
So,
And I'd also like to, as this is a town group, I'd say we should waive the fee also.
And we waive the fee.
so removed.
And we
Getting
got a
better all the
second?
time, isn't it?
This is,
Hey, come in 5 more minutes, we pay.
Well-
you guys are awesome.
You leave a little money in your pocket.
You came in doing the thing people are supposed to do. We're just so shocked that we're falling all over
Took them by
ourselves.
surprise, I didn't know what to do.
We used to do that back in the day.
And was that actually a second? Okay, a motion was made and seconded to approve the license, subject to working out the insurance and making sure all expenses are paid by the town and the fee is waived. Any further discussion? Seeing and hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye, and that was unanimous. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Okay? And thanks,
Thanks for bringing back the
Yeah.
dance.
yeah,
We
thanks
hope
for.
we get a good turnout. You'll start seeing some advertising for it.
So, I am gonna try to get, I know that the Minuteman update, I wanna leave plenty of time for that, and I don't want people waiting impatiently behind them, so I'm gonna leave you guys until the last of my visitors. And I will take up the gentleman who is here for the, Class 2 auto license, Mr. Holland, is it? Come on up.
Thank you.
Mr. Holland, we have some materials, but you want to explain what you're doing? I think you're associated with a nonprofit, right?
Sure, yeah. Second Chance Cars is a nonprofit startup. It aims to award affordable cars to working people with a focus on low-income veterans and returning citizens. If you don't live on public rail or the T, you effectively can't get to work efficiently on weekends, to do overtime. And that's the majority of the population in the state is not on the rail or on the T. So there is a huge gap between a body of people who need employment and their inability to get to the employment, and awarding them affordable cars would be a way to bridge that gap and allow these people to better themselves, better their families, and be contributing tax-paying citizens. So we aim to bridge that gap with this unique service. Nobody else is doing it in the state. The demand is huge from both the veteran community and the returning citizen community. We've been doing our due diligence for about a year, talking to all these organizations and assessing the demand. Now we're sort of super excited to be at the final stages of doing our administrative process, part of which is to get a Class 2 license, because there's no such thing as a nonprofit car dealer. It doesn't exist, so kind of the state is putting us in this bucket that exists, which is a used car dealer, forgetting about the nonprofit part. So we have to fulfill the requirements for a regular used car dealer, even though our cars are overwhelmingly not sold to the public. They're pre-matched with people who have been vetted by the social services who serve them. And one of those requirements is that we get a license from the state, from the town, and then from the state, and then we can get insurance. So here I am, hoping to establish.
And you're hoping to do this out of what location?
Right here on Great Road, where Infinite Automotive is located.
Okay.
You mean 100 Great Road?
100 Great Road, exactly.
So your inventory will be added to theirs, is that correct?
That's correct, and we.
Well, from the passerby, your cars will be out there with theirs.
Not really, just because we're a low volume, kind of high impact operation. The low volume, when I mean low volume, I say we aim to do 25 to 30 cars annually to award to people that will not be for sale to the public.
I get.
So those cars will be.
And you have them in mind already when you get the car.
Oh yeah, we'll match them in sort of real time. So cars that we get will need to be refurbished somehow, so they immediately go to a vocational school, to a dealership, to a garage that has, agreed to work with us. And once they're done, it's like they're matched to the person. So the bulk of these 25, 30 cars that we award annually won't be around that much, if at all. And then we hope to get a handful of cars a year. I think I mentioned in the letter, 5 to 10 maybe, that will be cars that aren't suitable for low-income ownership. And those cars will be sold to the public. So those cars could feasibly be in the front of the lot, but they may also be in the back, because I'm not relying on drive-by traffic to buy them. So I propose to put them in the back, because I understand there's a sensitivity to the optics of used cars, so I don't need them to be in the front, because that's not how I'm gonna sell them, honestly.
And those cars you'll sell to raise money to get more inventory for the low-income people.
Exactly, just fix the cars that we get donated that we award.
Are you planning on charging a nominal fee or a nominal price?
So the award cars, the ones that fulfill our mission, they'll be sold for a $900 over the course of a year, through a zero-interest loan that will allow the buyer to, A, be affordable, and B, rebuild their credit by the time they've paid off the loan. So that is the sort of the transaction with the buyer.
Okay. It's a very nice idea.
Thank you.
Questions from members of the board, looking at the side that I can't hear. Mr. Wright.
Is this isn't obviously probably not gonna be a full-time operation, it's just going to be, I would imagine doing 30 cars a year, it's, not a full-time operation.
I'm sorry to say that it is.
It is,
He's probably
Yeah.
working more hours
Trying to get
this work.
inventory.
Yeah, it is, yeah, the short answer is, it is. I can give you a longer answer.
Yeah, no, so, it sounds like you're gonna be, I'll call it turning over a car a week or something like that, give or, not even that.
Not even that, yeah.
One every 2 weeks or
Yeah.
so, and you'll just be arranging. I would imagine all the arranging is gonna be a lot more than delivering the car.
Yeah, it's a small enterprise, but between the solicitation, the vetting, the refurbishing, the matching, and then the evaluating, there's a lot of steps to be taken, and logistics. So it just takes time.
Yep, and So are you like a 501c3
Right.
corporation?
Right, we're submitting our application right now. We already got the state approval, but now we need that federal approval, so we're on the cusp of submitting that.
Mr. Burke?
So as I understand it, you're gonna have a business office at 100 Great Road, and the cars will be as part of the,
92.
Infinite, car dealership at 92 Great Road. Is that correct?
We are neighbors to them in the same physical building, but from a business point of view, we're separate entities.
No,
and-
I understand, but we
Yeah.
have to give you a location.
Right, right.
We have to venue this, and I'm trying to figure out if it's the business sorry, Marie.
We had clarification today because clerk came up and explained that 100 Great Road never existed, and Infinity had used that number on their own and had all filed with the state, so she did not make them change it, but she insisted that this time around that we go with 92, Unit 1A, Great Road.
So here's my only question on that. I think it's a great idea. Mr. Martin is here, but I understand Mr. Martin has no objections.
From a zoning perspective, I have no objection to this use on that site. My decision in 2017 was to allow storage and sales of vehicles or automobiles, and that was supported by the ZBA, so I'm fine with it.
I just need to ask a question that I vaguely remember from a few years ago, that there can't be a Class 2 auto license at the same address. Is there already a license at 92 Great Road?
There's already several Class 2 licenses there on that property.
Are we okay with that?
Yeah,
I'm okay with it.
I think we actually had the discussion,
Yeah.
and it was okay to have multiple licenses.
As long, without confusing the issue, the site isn't instructed when it comes to the statute, it's address within it. So many buildings have many different addresses to the office within the building. So that site has a number of operations on it, but their addresses are different. And that, as long as the differing numbers on the address actually reflect the fact that they're separate businesses, then you're fine.
If I remember, that was.
I'm okay with it.
Okay, well, I'm gonna rely on the building inspector. I'm fine with that. I'm sorry, Mr. Burke, I'm sure you're gonna add something of value.
Probably not, but, no, if I remember correctly, the point that you, were talking about, Mr. Chair, was raised by a citizen.
Yeah.
And we addressed it, and I think the town administrator even ran it down.
Yeah, I just couldn't remember how we resolved it. I just wanted to make that.
Sorry.
I prefer to raise it now rather than later, so, but the building inspector is good with it, so I'm good with it. Great idea.
Thank you.
Happy to have you in town doing this.
Thank you, really appreciate it.
Do we have a motion?
I move to issue Class 2 used car sales license to Dan Holen, Executive Director of Second Chance Cars, at and among 92 Great Road, Unit 1A, to expire on December 30, 2019.
Second.
Motion made and seconded to issue a Class 2 used car license to Dan Holen, Executive Director of Second Chance Cars, 92 Great Road, Unit 1A, expiring December 30th, 2019. Further discussion? Seeing and hearing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye, that's unanimous.
Thank you so much.
Thank
See
you
you.
very much.
You help me do good things for people.
Thank you.
Well, when you come back here to renew your license, you can tell us what progress you've made.
Oh, I'd
Yeah,
love to. I would
actually,
actually,
it'd be very
it'd be my
interesting.
pleasure.
I could just get you to initial it, right, the change of the address. Thank you.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
I'll get everything set up for tomorrow.
That's amazing.
Super, thank you so much.
What?
Thank you.
Sorry about that.
Thank you very much.
Just wasn't making any sense.
No, I'm glad you raised it.
Thank you so much. Yeah, no problem.
All right, the room seems like it got more crowded, not less crowded. And I wanted to go, I think, Deb, I assume, are you here to notarize?
Yeah, I got a last minute call, there was a issue, so I showed up.
Yes.
But
I-
I think Pam's getting, I was just getting information, I think Pam's getting a number.
Yes, and she's gonna
So
be
I'll just-
back
I'll
up here at some point, so
Good.
please tell the town clerk I couldn't take a phone call in the middle of a meeting, it's a little awkward, so.
Is it from her?
Right.
More awkward than usual.
Not like I have to look at it. You mean, I'll assume you mean you collectively have to understand the things in that. I would agree with that. So,
You wanna do
next I wanna
bicycling,
take up,
bicycles?
no, I wanna take up the, parking lot at Acton Commuter Rail to, take care of people, and then I wanna do Minuteman. Otley, do you wanna join us?
Yes, happy to.
So, Ollie, do you wanna summarize this issue? And I think the question before the board is just, do we want to send a letter to the town of Acton about the issue Otley's gonna describe for us?
So, important piece for folks that live in town of Stow, that work in Boston and want to use public transportation, is the ability of taking the train. The challenge with taking the train is, how do you get from your residency to the train station and back home? There are multiple modes of getting there. You could walk, bike, all of those things. The majority of people ride a car. In order to ride a car, either you ride your car there and park it, or you have someone driving you, picking you up. We can argue the various different merits of transportation. As a portion of the refurbishing of the South Acton train station, there has been very, very limited effort in trying to address parking at that facility. It's a very heavily utilized facility for commuters into Boston. And if you take any of the early trains in the morning, you will notice that these are packed trains with people even standing getting in there. That in itself is reflected in a very severe issue of parking at the train station or in proximity of the train station. If you're not an Acton resident, your opportunities for parking are very, very limited. About 2 to 3 years ago, some relief that effort was done by an older gentleman that was downsizing his business and has a facility adjacent to the train station. And he stopped his business and turned the facility into a parking lot where people could rent a spot for parking on a monthly basis at a very, very fair price. He is going out of business as a parking landlord, I would say that, and that is actually an objective that was a subject of Acton's town meeting in the last few weeks, where town of Acton actually agreed to purchase his property. The consequence of that is that for those of us that are from Stow, and there are a fair number of the 40 spot that residents of Stow actually utilize as a monthly parking, is now in jeopardy for us where we will park, because in principle, when Acton turns things into a parking lot, it's for Acton's residents. I don't think there is much that the town of Stow can do except raise awareness that the residents of Stow need to be able to have ability in parking at the train station. Because it is a public facility for more than just the residents of Acton.
So I'm glad you brought this forward. I mean, there isn't much we can do, but as we mentioned, I think you mentioned all the time when we go through the budget, we pay a fairly sizable assessment from the MBTA for the privilege of, in theory, having access to the South Acton train station and being within the T's ambit. Most T stations, most T-owned T stations have public parking paid for by the T, and obviously it doesn't favor one town or another.
Right.
For whatever reason, at the South Acton station, although the T owns the station and the rails, this town of Acton owns the parking lot. And all of us have gotten used to the idea that the Acton residents get to park closer to the train and get to park for free, and that's all well and good. But Ollie's right, unless you get the second train at 6:30 in the morning, you're pretty much closed out. There was a little bit of relief a couple of years ago when this gentleman and maybe one or two other people started leasing spots to out-of-towners, so you knew you had a reliable place to go. And it only worked if you went just about every business day.
Yes.
Based on the price. And for the town of Acton to take away one of the few opportunities there are, it just, it really is a slap in the face, and something that I think we need to do something about. So that's why we're here. Questions, comments from members of the board? Brian?
Is there a possible solution, or are we just gonna go to war with Acton?
Who are you addressing that to?
Everyone.
I mean, what I anticipated, war with Acton, that'd be interesting. I don't know if that's possible.
We got enough problems with that.
Yeah, we do.
We could send our Minutemen.
We could.
Not Minutemen.
They don't have an airport. We would own the air.
Air supremacy, that's all we need.
Tanks.
All I have,
Tanks?
we do have tanks.
Yeah, we got a building full of
All right,
World War
right,
II
right.
armor. that can scale
All
it.
I had in mind was a letter for me, maybe to their chair of the Board of Selectmen. We don't have a lot of detail. Craig called their building inspector, verified they did purchase the land. We can't be sure of what for, but it's presumably for Acton residents. You know, it would be a polite letter. I don't plan on doing anything more than that. I think I may mention it to Kate Hogan. She doesn't represent Acton. I may try to get together with Jamie Eldridge and ask him about this, but I don't plan on doing it. I don't think that constitutes war. It's a skirmish at best.
I just was asking.
Yeah, no, it's a fair question. Bill?
This isn't the first time that this issue in my 28 years has come up. At one time, we had I forgot, maybe it was Steve Duncan.
Yeah.
Because he was using it.
It was.
Came to the board with a similar complaint. The possible solution back then was to find adequate parking in Stow somewhere and transport back and forth. Steve took it upon himself to send out a survey, asked people, and the survey response was negligible, unfortunately. But I believe one of the churches was willing to let their parking lot be used.
It was the Blue Door Church.
Was it?
But they've changed.
And in fact, someone was proposing transportation as well. So it might be that in parallel, sending the letter, asking whether Acton's thought of any relief for anybody or not, and at the same time, reactivate that effort to see if we couldn't get a local transportation means going. We have, our Council on Aging vans, we have multiple ones. In fact, Rec is thinking of taking one themselves of that because they were gonna get rid of it. And if not, you wouldn't have to do too much thinking to develop what might be an alternative transportation arrangement right here from Stow.
I think we should take that up. Kate Hogan has talked to me about a possible pilot program. There's a regional transportation agency. It's not MART, it's the other one, whose name I can't remember.
Don would know.
The one out of Marlboro. And they have been dying to get into Stow to try to do a pilot program to transport kids theoretically from the library to the Boys and Girls Club in Maynard, and also maybe to the South Acton train station. Maybe we could leverage that. I just, I remember when Steve did that, there was not a lot of demand, and if you put any barriers in people's way to taking a train or a van or anything, they're gonna start driving. And in this day and age, with everything we know, to encourage people to drive is just so short-sighted. Not to mention, having done that drive for over 20 years, it will drive people crazy after a while. It is a horrible way to get to work, especially if you work full-time.
It adds significantly to the commute of people when you add another leg on this side of it to actually get to your work.
Right.
Commuting to Boston, even with a train, it's a significant endeavor for whoever is trying to get to
Yeah.
their work location. It's a 2 to 3 hour journey every day.
I think they call it first mile, last mile issues, getting to the train, getting from the train to.
The program that you are describing, Acton has one, Maynard has one, Selectmen. Those are all good intent. I think the usage is limited by the fact of exactly it's adding to people's commuting time. I have an alternative suggestion, just as a food for thought. The town line between Stow and Acton to the train station is less than a mile, it's about 0.8 miles to it. If any of the zoning and rules in the town of Stow would allow certain amount of parking adjacent on the West Acton Road for town residents, that is an alternative way of thinking about something that town of Stow could do.
On South Acton Road.
So, yeah.
Yeah. Mr. Burke.
I was just gonna build on that, and I'm just spitballing here. We're developing that that parcel down on Red Acre Road for mixed use, affordable housing, and also access to trails. But it'd be, I mean, it's a hike, but if we could have some parking there, people, but I'm just spitballing, I'm throwing it out there.
No, I think that's an idea, or the owner of, the old town dump on the north side of South Acton Road, at the very line, is an old town dump, now privately owned. And that, it might be interested in, all it's gotta do is pave it and stripe it, and then it's parking. And
That's within, something from the town line in is
Right.
within walking distance, because now there is the fields that South Acton has, that there's a set of parking spots there that commuters can
Right.
rent on a monthly basis as well.
At this
Not
point,
before.
at this point, I think all we're talking about tonight is a polite letter.
Correct.
But I do think that, I think transportation issues in this town are bigger than we thought, though the town administrator is right. When we've explored it, there hasn't been much demand.
So a working group of some kind begin to look at alternatives, without prejudicing the outcome by suggesting one or the other.
Yep.
Imagination is more important than knowledge, and start thinking about that and others. Something like
Mr.
that.
McPherson.
So, I'm thinking fondly about Donna Jacobs.
Yes.
I think everybody here knew, and she was a strong rail advocate and fought hard to get the second rail line extended up to Fitchburg. And it caught my attention when I was on the planning board, and I paid attention to it ever since. And when they were under construction, there was a proposal given to Acton, as I understand it, from MBTA, to provide at no cost to the town a 2-story or 3-story parking garage. And Acton said, no, thank you. So a polite letter is a wonderful exercise. You can practice your penmanship. A more important letter would be to MBTA, in my opinion, to let them know that other towns are not happy with Acton's position, and to find a solution that doesn't begrudge them their home rule initiatives. We're not saying that.
Yeah.
But we should look to ourselves for the solution. It could be transportation of some kind, but I would, if you're gonna write a letter to Acton, write one to MBTA or DOT.
I think that's a good idea.
And the last thing is that the mechanic school at the airport is always asking me and Kate, how can we get students from the train that are doing the reverse commute out to the school? So there, you might find riders for whatever solution we come up with in unthought of places. So include everybody.
I would just caution whatever we're suggesting to Acton. I do remember and was aware of some of the details of those negotiations. Acton was protecting what it saw as its own self-interest with more and more traffic coming through their roadways. And after all that consideration, those competing interests and needs, the MBTA decided they weren't gonna do it, but, so bringing it up again, I'd be cautious about how you
No,
start.
I mean, my impression was always that the MBTA is well aware of the arrangement at the South Acton train station, but I get your point.
Maybe we can find something ourselves.
Right, we should probably move on. Do I have a motion? I would be happy to draft a letter. I will run it, though, by the board at a later time, approve it before I send it out. And let's say a letter to South Acton, or to Acton and to the MBTA for all that, for,
I move to authorize the chair to draft a letter for later submittal to the board for review to the town of Acton and the MBTA regarding the limited parking at South Acton train station, and also the plans perhaps to convert private property into exclusive Acton parking that does everything just short of threatening war.
Second.
motion made and seconded to authorize me to
I'm not
draft,
signing that, right?
to draft, no, I'll be signing that, to draft letters, to the town of Acton and
I
to
gotta
the
work.
MBTA regarding the parking situation at the South Acton train station. Further discussion?
So your version is better than his.
Yeah, I know.
Okay.
Absolutely no war, always is. Yeah,
Aye.
members of the Fourth Estate, please don't put war in the letter, in the articles, we don't need that. Please, any further discussion? Last word?
Thank you.
Oh, okay. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Thank you, Audley, thanks for bringing it to our attention. All right, and now, Pam, I'm gonna ask you just to wait a little bit. I've been keeping Don and Bob waiting, and Nancy waiting for so long, that I want to take them. How are you guys doing?
Great. My first apartment ever was in a 3-story building next to the train station at South Acton.
Really?
Yep, lived on the 3rd floor, cheapest rent I could get.
With a black ceiling.
Wow.
Shall we come up?
Please do. We look forward to this.
Nancy?
Yes, we did bees today.
Sit in the middle.
Hey, of course.
Does everybody know everybody? I think so, yes. Okay. How are you doing? So, this is our Minuteman Airfield update.
Bob Glorioso is chairman of our airport commission and helped me put together this wonderful PowerPoint presentation, which I'm not gonna read, but I will hand it out to you. And
Sure.
there are some attachments, and I have one for everybody. Actually, it goes with this from the state, economic impact study from the state, PowerPoint, yep. And thank goodness Don's not here, because I only had 4.
Thank you.
Sorry, Bill.
Not offended.
Okay. It's online anyway. If the state updates its economic impact study every 5 years, and this is the 5th year. The title says 5-year update. And it ranks airports on the middle page. Right in the middle is a chart on the right-hand side that it lists the airports alphabetically, which is too bad, because you've got to go through and sort them out. Well, I've sorted them out with much interest. And little old Minuteman Airfield is the 7th largest generator of economic impact amongst the 28, I think it's 28, general aviation airports. So we will think of ourselves as the little engine that could.
And the ones that beat us are all municipally owned, bigger ones.
So you can read that at your leisure. There's also a single sheet flyer in there that talks a little more directly about Minuteman. There's direct impacts, there's multiplier impacts using some standard format recognized nationally for calculating economic impact. So we're kind of proud of that.
Yeah, you should be.
What's the total number? That's the
Total number, Stow, Minuteman, 25,800,000 and change for total economic output. And there's a number there that says total employment. If you look at this sheet, it says airport employment and multiplier employment. I think the number of airport jobs is some smaller number than the 210 jobs You remember seeing that, Bob?
Yeah, I think it's about 2/3 of that.
Yeah.
It's still a lot.
It's a lot.
It's still a lot,
It's a
right.
busy place.
Yeah.
Well, the school has more and more impact on what's going on up there than any other one thing. Also, last page, inside back cover of the last page, they highlight 5 airports across the state for some special recognition, and Minuteman Airfield was called out for that. A nice picture of Nancy's Airfield Cafe in the photograph. But it talks about the private investment that's been triggered by the public investment at the airport. So enjoy reading that. It's a wonderful study. Further into the PowerPoint, we have a page about our open house, which is coming up Saturday. And we have a flyer for the open house and a flyer for the 5K foot race. How many people here are signed up for the foot race?
Brian is,
Brian, okay.
I signed up twice.
You signed up twice?
In the 5 to 10-year-old.
No, I thought it was the virtual race.
We have a virtual race for people that don't run. You bring your laptop and you can compete, but you still have to pay the registration fee, which is a good thing because you'll notice here that all the proceeds from the foot race benefit the Stow and Boxborough Conservation Trusts, something we're very happy to do. The last flyer is Wings and Wheels, fifth year running now. Used to be Neshoba Rotary, Maynard and Acton Boxborough, and it's now Acton Boxborough, Westford, and the Stow Lions Club. You'll see their emblem in the bottom of that last page. It's like old home week, have them working with the Lions Club. It's great fun. Questions on economic impact?
you're doing a good job up there.
Oh, thanks.
It's, I mean, you're, every year that I'm on the board, your impact just becomes bigger and bigger.
Bob, how much did it multiply over the last study? You looked that up today.
I forgot the number, but it was over twice.
Since the last study 5 years ago.
Well, that's because it's fully leased out right now, and there's all kinds of businesses in there, and including Alakai Technologies, which is building a drone.
So all your
Commercial
commercial
drone.
space is leased?
And yeah, you have to sign up and get on a waiting list now.
Is the flight school still there?
Yeah,
Yeah.
and there's very few places for airplanes right now. We're pretty full. How many we got now? Maybe 2 or 3 tie downs?
3, I think.
3.
Yep.
That's very low.
Yeah. Wow. That's terrific.
We're happy.
Do
So,
you need anything from us by way of support?
not right now, but I have another letter for you.
Okay.
And this is why Nancy's here. We're celebrating, this open house and foot race celebrates 50 years running the airport. We've only been married 42 years, but we've been running the airport for 50. Thank you.
Most
Thank
handed
you.
out to other people being a nice guy.
As we've been encouraged by Bob and others to think about a succession plan for a decade, and we finally got moved into action a year ago, and I went to a seminar on how to transition your farm to another farmer. Well, airports and farms are a lot alike, so I got a lot from that. And we asked the kids if they wanted to work in a restaurant and run an airport, and they just laughed and said, no thanks. And we've continued on without doing too much until finally Marlboro closed, and that really shocked me and made me think that if I don't do something, everything I've worked so hard, or we've worked so hard to build might go by the wayside, like Marlboro, which is now closed. So we put together a team to help us develop a succession plan. And that's what you have in front of you, is an outline of some steps that we might follow to move forward with our succession plan. We're keeping in mind the public trust that's been put into us locally and by our customers, but especially by the state and federal government investing in the infrastructure at the airport. And we want to make sure that everything we do is open and transparent. And we've listed potential owners of the airport. It's hard for me to even say that.
Yeah.
Potential owners of the airport after us, not after we, no, just after. And there's public ownership options, there are private ownership options. And public is the one that we're very interested in because we feel so strongly about our community and about the airport. And a possible Stow purchase of the airport is a consideration, along with the Commonwealth of Massachusetts or an independent airport authority and so forth. In order to move forward with this plan, we visited Kate Hogan, Jen Benson, Jamie Eldridge at the State House to thank them for their support and let them know what we're doing so nobody would be surprised. We've now been to the Mass Aeronautics Commission to let them know Monday, which I'm pretty sure was yesterday, right? Yesterday, yep, yesterday we went to the FAA New England region, told them what we had up our sleeves so that they wouldn't be surprised. And now we're here to tell you guys and anybody else that's listening that we're gonna plan to retire. It's not gonna happen overnight. Could take, according to my consultant that we hired, it could take 7 years, which I think is way too long, given my advancing age.
Could be 80.
But it will be, you know, a 3 to 5 year kind of window probably.
So, well,
That's the news.
okay, you gave me a heads up about that, and maybe some of my colleagues, I don't know, and I appreciate that. I just wanna say one thing, I don't wanna talk about, successors to you, I don't even wanna think about it right now, but, I do wanna remark, you know, I go on these long bike rides, and I pass by a couple of local airfields, and there's one in Sterling that I go by a lot, and it reminds me a lot of the one that was in the town that I grew up. And it's basically a bunch of airplanes, a lot of asphalt, a little tiny building, and I really for the first time looked at it the other day, because I was thinking about you. And, you know, it looks like a little building where you can have a cup of coffee while you wait for whoever it is who's gonna take you someplace. And, that's it. And, you know, I haven't asked Ross Perry or any of our other friends in Sterling, but pretty sure if the Sterling Airport, you know, disappeared or closed, it wouldn't be the end of the world. And then I remember that same feeling about the airport in the town I grew up. It was just a little building, nobody even knew who owned it. My father took a flight out of there once in a while, nobody even thought about it. But you've turned your airfield into a town institution. Your commercial ties, your civic ties, I can't think of I can't count all the events that you've had there. Politicians, fundraisers, you're the place where people go when they wanna have a special brunch or a special night out. You know, you really have built an institution, not just a piece of asphalt with a tiny building, which you could have done, and you could have made money with that, right? But instead, you chose to go in a different direction. And so we appreciate that. We'll have plenty of time to talk about what comes later. But right now, I think this is all about thank you. Thank you for devoting the time, the energy, and the money to making this a better town.
Wow. Thank you.
Thank you.
That's
Thank you
overwhelming.
very much, yeah, it is.
Well,
This is when you ask him to accept the ownership of
Oh, is this the time?
it. You know what I mean?
That's-
I wouldn't waste it, he's on.
I left my checkbook at home, I'll have to
I'm
ask
leaving in
Kathy.
14 months, that's like, yeah.
Well, it has
won't let
been thoroughly enjoyable on our part. Hosting events and meeting customers every day that gets me out of bed in the morning. It's a little bit harder to get out of bed, but we'll be there tomorrow at 8 o'clock, 'cause business as usual.
Yes, you will.
But that means a lot to me, too.
We have had a lot of fun there. We like to tell people we didn't really work throughout our lives. We hosted a party every day.
And nobody doubts you.
That's the way we feel about it. So again, Nancy did say business as usual. This is gonna be a multi-year process. We don't know how long it'll take.
Yep.
Got an open house Saturday. Trying to get funds from the state for a new administration building. We just installed solar taxiway lights, that's 80% state funded. All of these things are gonna continue while we search for a new owner.
And I know business will continue, and you'll still be big part of this community, and when you divest yourselves of the airport eventually, you're staying in town, is my understanding.
We hope to, if you don't send us out on a rail, the
I-
South Acton rail.
Won't do that, there'll be no place to park. So,
Well, we, drop them off.
right, drop 'em off. So, well, I just wanna say thank you for this update, and thank you for, this very professional notice and heads up about your succession plan. It is a great idea considering how much, considering your ties to the community. And
They're important.
it is a scary thing to think about, but we'll have time to do it and talk about it.
Great.
Can I say something?
Yes, please, Bob.
I've been the one on the commission that's been badgering Don for a long time to think about it, because you have to do it even when you're a kid. With an enterprise that has grown as much as the airport has, that has so many people depending on it. And I gotta say, what you said is very gratifying to me as well, because what Don and Nancy have just done to make this move took a lot of guts. It's not nerve, it's guts, because it's right it's in their bodies, this airport. And so this is a tough move to even think about, and not only thinking about it, but they're thinking about it systematically and correctly.
Yep.
I think that's very important for
Those are very
everybody.
responsible.
Thanks. I feel like I've jumped off a cliff.
Well, you're very
I'm
fortunate you
needing
found,
a
you found
parachute.
the passion in your life.
Yes.
The professional passion, and
Yeah.
that it benefited
Yeah.
so many other people too. Not everybody is blessed with that.
I
So,
agree.
count yourselves very lucky, and we're very lucky to have had Minuteman Airfield and Nancy's Airfield Cafe here under your tutelage, and we appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Tom, yes, of course.
Jim's obviously a hard act to follow, but that's why he's chair. But, it's one of the things, and I just want to say, I reiterate everything he said, but I also feel you guys are a class act doing this the way you're doing it, right? When I got
Thank
the
you.
call from you a few
Thank
weeks
you.
ago, you could have made whatever plans you wanted, and just told us what you were gonna do when it was a done deal. But the thing is, I think you guys have always had the best interests of the town at heart. And like I said, you're a class act. Gave me a call, I came out, you gave me a heads up that this was gonna be coming. And, it's just very gratifying that you feel you can approach us and have that we respect you enough to come out and talk to you. So, thank you guys, like I said, class act.
Thank
And
you.
thank you for coming out.
And this is our
Appreciate it.
town, we love this town.
And we love you.
Thank you.
Gee whiz. Make that door a little wider when you try to get out.
Someday you'll get one of those little certificates suitable for framing.
Well,
Don't raise his hand.
Thank you, thank you, thank you. Thank you very much. Thanks. Thanks for coming by. Yeah, thanks, nice to have you. Good to be seen. Bill, thank you so much. Who is this?
I don't know, but someone.
Don, I'll leave copies all down.
Oh, that's mine. Thank you, guys, thank you. Oh, didn't expect that, thank you. Take a careful look at that, right?
It's on mine, yeah,
Okay.
but I need the actual, yeah, that's hard.
Are you getting your beads tomorrow? Oh, a week, I'll be away. Putting Linda's.
I mean, you do something with it, it's good, it's very good.
Bill?
Thank you all.
No, I'm just kidding.
You know Bob Roberts,
Think about that. Let's talk about it.
Sue's husband? Conservation Trust. Anyway, he came to the class.
It is.
It was nice.
42 years.
It's Sterling, oh, orange.
I mean orange, I meant orange, excuse me, orange.
All right, I think we're ready to go back to the bond. Yeah.
I want the Bloody Mary recipe before she leaves.
Oh, yeah, she should sell her Bloody Mary recipe.
Well, you were,
Yes.
I know you need us to sign the bonds.
I did talk to the town clerk, she's sick, but she's watching us on TV. And Deb, the assistant town clerk, figured out what the 23 million is, it's the amount that was authorized for the school project at town meeting, which was 37 million, minus the money that we received from the state MSBA. So that's the amount, the maximum amount we can borrow for that project. And I think the intent was to show that we can borrow more money for the school project. But you're right, the way it reads, it looks like we are borrowing 23 million.
Yeah.
Um,
So that is for the center school project?
The center school project.
Okay.
And this bond issue only contains 500,000 for that project.
Okay.
So I don't know if you wanna, I can ask bond counsel to edit this tomorrow. Did the vote of the selectmen.
So, may I see that? So
Yeah,
Deb,
I think it's actually on the first page. I flipped it over for signing.
oh, so this is the vote document,
Yeah,
and this we've already authorized the clerk to sign when you're all set with
Yeah.
it. So this should be okay.
yeah.
It's the bond itself that
Yeah.
requires
And
all of this.
all of those reference the $9,055,000.
So should I sign that now?
I think I'm gonna ask bond counsel to edit it.
Oh, okay,
Um,
all right.
Just to clarify
To
what the
clarify what the
23
23 million,
million.
'cause if you do read it more carefully, it does look like we're borrowing $23 million tonight, which we're not.
Okay, and so, and you want us to sign the bonds for $220,000?
No, that, there's actually it's 25 years and each year has its own bond.
Got it,
So the total is $9,055,000.
$9,055,000.
Then there's some other documents like saying,
We have to sign all those?
yeah.
No way. I suggest we delegate.
You ride how many miles in that station?
Signing, I don't, if you,
Every selectman has to sign it?
well, 3 out of the 5.
3 out of the 5.
Before you were here.
All right, I hate to take up so much time.
Yeah. Is there another discussion waiting?
There's a few, not with people, but there's,
Let's just do it.
I guess we just do it, you gotta do it, get it over
I
with.
signed it.
So I need
This is
I need a motion to sign for the selectmen to sign the bond for $9,055,000.
Brian already read that motion, but he said it with the clerk combination language, so we probably need to
I
correct it.
move to approve the sale of a 9,000, excuse me, I apologize, 9,055,000, 25-year bond dated May 1, 2019 to FDN Financial Capital Markets for $9,624,199.81.
Stop.
Yeah, I know.
Okay, good. Sorry.
Second.
So, motion's been made and seconded to sign the bond. Further discussion? All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
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 But should it be bonds?
Bonds.
And the supporting people.
Okay, well, I'm gonna suggest, town administrator's report while we do this. We can sign and listen at the same time.
That was a great thought you just had.
You have that, you like that?
Yeah. So, first of all, I apologize, I forgot to make hard copies or send out the electronic ones, so, you won't know if I'm making this up on the floor or not, but, one thing I did wanna spend time sharing with you is that as we're approaching town meeting, and given the, number of expensive capital items that are come before the town for voting. And there's been a number of late moment changes in some of the numbers, none of them going down, as you're aware. But we've received notice on the Lower Village recently that the number we're carrying in the warrant, which is $500,000, that represents what had been estimating, and it had grown some over the winter as we had buttoned down the Lower Village roadway project until spring for redesign and rework, all of which is underway. The new design firm, consulting firm, just recently provided an updated estimate, pre-designed estimate for additional costs. to get the project done, and that includes what we understood to be, and they've confirmed, to basically be rework and correction of deficiencies from the previous consulting firm. And the number has grown considerably, but it's still a pre-designed estimate. So we began to think about options with regard to that project and a vote at town meeting. And I shared with Jim particularly, and the chairman of the capital planning committee, as well as the chair of the finance committee, my thought about, is there an approach we can take that will minimize the immediate cost of this project, while at the same time keeping the project underway through design completion, and in the end have a number that the town voters can decide to vote on that is direct and certain, not remote, not speculative as an estimate is. And the ones we've had for this project over the course of several years have proven not to be accurate. So we had a discussion this evening, and it was agreed, I think unanimously, that what we'll attempt to do, and this will be driven by the planning board, because this is their article, they're the sponsors. Instead of the $500,000 that's included in the warrant, there'll be another number. The number hasn't been arrived at yet, but rather than a higher number, it'll be a lower number. And the purpose of getting that lower number is we've agreed that the voters should only be asked to appropriate that sum of money that reflects getting us through design development and completion of design, but nothing for additional construction. And then we would come back to the town as soon as we're able, when we have the actual costs, and these costs will be known precisely, because this process, unlike a bidding process for construction, as you know, the typical construction project we do, we first ask to appropriate feasibility study money, then we go through design, development, and completion. And these are separate stages where the town is asked to appropriate the money only for that phase, until we complete design and we've got a good handle on the cost of construction. This is not analogous, but it differs only by a small degree in that, and it's actually a better process in that this process ends by getting a quote, i.e. a bid in a way, from the contractor, which is ET&L of Stow, in the form of a change order. That change order will reflect the redesign work that's been done and will have specified the nature and extent of work that is required to complete this project, that will end up with what we envisioned would be the look and the functionality of the Lower Village project. We hope to be able to do that within a couple of months after the annual town meeting, and we would then have a special town meeting for the purpose of going in there and having an amount of money that we know to be true. It won't be a guess, it won't be an informed estimate, it will be, because ET&L is going to have to put a number in there as a change order. And that's part of the construction process, it's a normal one. They were doing it until we stopped construction last fall, and so this will be the culmination of it. We
I'm
do
sorry,
that.
I have to interrupt you. I don't know what I'm signing, so I need to understand that, and I have to stop you, because I can't do both. So these tax,
That's the tax district. That,
what is it
it
for?
basically, it's so that the bonds are tax exempt for the investors that are buying them. And it's basically saying that the town will do what we have to do to keep them tax exempt.
Okay.
Basically, we need to calculate what interest we earn on the money, which wouldn't do much because we've already spent it.
And then what is the
Because they-
signature, no litigation, and official statement certificate?
I believe that one is saying that we don't have any litigation against the town that would affect our ability to pay the bonds.
That makes sense.
That one
And
should,
are there any other things so that I don't have to
And then
interrupt
there's
Bill
one
again?
other,
I just need to understand what I'm signing
Yeah.
before I sign it.
Continuing disclosures certificate.
yeah, that's, every year we have to do a, it's called continuing disclosure. We file a report with the Security Exchange Commission. And I think that just says, I'll keep doing that.
Okay. this is blind trust, all right?
Yeah.
This is
Okay.
the same as that one,
Yeah.
the big
Okay,
one,
the
so
big
at
one.
least you know what that one is.
All right, thank you. You may go ahead, because it was getting more complicated
those
on
are
your
important
end.
questions.
So I
Yeah,
was
they
like, okay, I've got this, but then I need to focus on that, so, okay.
And they never
Okay.
give me these papers till like today, so
Yeah.
I
Hopefully
could
rendered
give
a
them to
little
you.
lesson for you now that you're not on the board soon, and, you know.
Thank you, Andy.
All right, so that goes with the tax
So,
one.
in any event, this attempt of ours is to present to the town meeting in a couple of weeks, something that is more understandable, a number that is tied to a deliverable, and then a process that intends to get us to a spot where you'll know exactly what you're going to pay to complete this project. And for the inconvenience but short money of a special town meeting, when you're talking about hundreds of thousands of dollars, we felt that it was more important for the taxpayers of Stow to know what it is they're voting on and what they're going to get for their money. And to date in this project, that's not always been the case, so we think this is the best and wisest approach, because we still only have a pre-designed estimate from the current engineer, and we're not gonna have a post-engineer in time for town meeting. And so, I think we agreed that out of all the options we had, that the voters of Stow would be best served by this option. Jim, if you wanna.
Well, I just wanna make sure that my colleagues understand what you just talked about. It's unfortunate that
Matching up to this.
we're trying to combine two things here. Are you guys following what he's talking about with the Lower Village project? The numbers came in a lot higher than was
Mhm.
anticipated, and so we're basically talking about having a special proposal the voters vote a lower number representing primarily design.
And any attendant or coincidental costs that are part of that, to get us to the point we can give something to the contractor to put a number to.
Questions?
Yeah, my biggest comment when I saw it, I agree, I think in principle with that. I'm worried a little bit about some of the comments that I saw in there, leading to, I'll call it scope creep. That, oh, this might be nice to run the sidewalk up further.
You're talking about in Green International's report?
Yes, you know, and that's one of the things I saw. And I know it's all preliminary at this point, but I am a little concerned about, I'll call it a little scope creep, that, oh, this would have been nice to do too, let's add this in now.
And every project faces that,
Sure.
and our approach has always been to provide the voters with a base project cost, and then add what we call add alternates. You know, we did it with Pompo, or before they even get to the vote, they're taken out. But that approach, the base approach, there's a number attached to it, and then there's other things that Green at this point is suggesting would improve the project. Our viewpoint, and the other thing we clarified for process is a working group that we think is important, as we did for the larger projects, to be reinstituted here. And there is one in place that the board, if you remember, last winter, in the executive session with the planning board, it was for the purposes of getting us through the initial shock of the HSH, but also getting us prepped to have a replacement and Ingeborg was part of that group as well. That's gonna carry on through design and construction, though obviously there'll be at least one new member, because Ingeborg is no longer on the board. But if one of the others of you wanted to represent that, otherwise, the group that I put together last fall when I took over project management's pretty much in place, which is, we've got the highway superintendent, we've got Craig Martin, the engineer, who's our building commissioner, we have Sue Carter, who's the planning board's engineer, Jesse, and it was Ingeborg and Valerie. So that's the other thing we agreed to, that it shouldn't be just the planner and maybe Sue Carter making those decisions going forward, it should be a group.
Ingeborg, Am I correct in assuming that when you're off the board, you don't wanna be in that role, or would you be willing to entertain that? I mean, given your background, I have to ask the question. You just have a unique background that makes you perfectly suitable for it. On the other hand, frankly, I'm sure that part of the reason for getting off the board is to reduce the number of meetings.
Well, so those are usually day meetings or reading things, and to the extent that there does need to be more hands-on, I don't mean more in a negative way, but
Yeah,
we've gone through a lot, and we need to make sure that this process moving forward is as smooth as possible. And if there was an off-board member possibility, I could participate in some way or come and report periodically, but.
brief us periodically.
Yeah, something, but it, that's up to the board, obviously, you guys can discuss it.
I appreciate you even being open to that. Thank you.
Cause that means I don't have to do 2 nights right now I have 4 meetings.
I know.
At least, which you all do too, but I'm burning out, so.
It is true that most of these are working meetings during the day, hours that they can get the group together. So I don't think they envision any evening hours for this.
Thank you.
Typically wouldn't.
So you all say.
I,
Can't have too many engineers, I'll tell you that right now.
let's leave it to another time, but, as far as I'm concerned, if Ingeborg is willing to do that, I want you to think about it. I don't wanna take a vote right now, because if you change your mind, I want you to have the freedom to do that.
Thank you.
But as far as I'm concerned, if you're willing to do that, you would be the person I would want to do it.
And I have great faith in you doing it.
Mr. Burke, do you have any questions?
I just have some thoughts.
I'll be off smart too.
I appreciate all the hard work that the town administrator and the rest of the members of the committee are doing, and have been doing. But the new numbers I've seen are just shocking. I don't feel as though we've got a handle on this as a board anymore. And what I would like to see is an executive session with the planning board to maybe reconsider some options that we discarded. Not saying that we should, I'm just saying that I think we need to take a whole new look at this, and any vote the town meeting takes on any number for design, we should make sure that we don't expend that money until such time as this committee that we've been talking about, and maybe hopefully Ingeborg will stay on, and this board gets a better handle on the town's rights and liabilities. That's my feeling.
Well, I think there's 2 different things going on. Oh, sorry, Mr.
Keep
Chair.
going. You're starting to say what I was about to say. Go ahead.
Yeah, well, you can finish it then.
Well, there's 2 different things going on. There's the action
I think I just typed
against,
that.
there's the action against Howard Stein Hudson, which I can't say anything more about in public, and which is perfectly appropriate for executive session, and, that is where it is. And then there's the finishing up of Lower Village. We could certainly talk to the planning board more about that. That would not be an executive session, that would be an open session. And I don't know that that really involves our rights and liabilities or what the options are there. I will say that, you're exactly right, I don't think anybody has really good grip on the new numbers that came out last Thursday morning. And that is why the town administrator is proposing splitting them up at annual town meeting and going only with the number for design. Because then you go to a special with a hard number. So I understand what you're saying, but, well, I understand your uncertainty.
Yeah, and it is 2 different things.
And it is 2 different things, but of course, if I was calling for executive session, it would be for only one of those things.
Okay, so basically you're saying you want an executive session to revisit any litigation remedies?
Well, 2 things. First, can we let these good people
Yeah,
go?
right.
Yes, of course. I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry.
Thank you very much, and I'll get that correction
Yes.
tomorrow.
Secondly, it is
And
the.
just let so I can come by, I can do that Thursday
It was
morning.
very nice of you to, put up with us.
Thank you very much.
So sorry.
It's interesting.
Secondly, as far as scheduling an executive session, I think one thing does necessarily involve the other, but it would only be called for the one thing that is permitted under executive session, and that would be up to the chair of this board, and I suppose planning board if it was going to be joint,
So-
to schedule.
I will, I'll plan, if it'd be all right after town meeting, we'll get an executive session, and maybe we'll get counsel on the phone to spare a little bit of expense, just to
Yeah, I think I
update.
shared with you what's been submitted, so,
I got no problems with that.
no,
I'm
no,
just-
that's right. I wanna stick with the project right now, because
Yes,
that's
yes.
the first deliverable. And I'd only say this, if there's any substantive doubts at the end of the process that we just agreed to tonight with going forward, which is, it's been critical from my perspective that Sue Carter, her firm, serve as they do technically, which is the planning board's in-house engineer. This report is in their hands from Green International, as it's been shared with the rest. I've stated, without changing my approach, that in the end, we're gonna have to rely on an engineer or engineers to decide whether what's designed through methodology, engineering approach, deliverables, additional work, is competent and reasonable or not. Because none of us are qualified. And I will say this, I'm willing to accept Sue Carter. I worked 2 months with her and her partner when I took over the project last fall. Not an engineer, but I worked for an engineering company. I know how to read plans. I know intuitively things out there. And in the end, if we've got an agreement between a second engineer, independently hired, and that is supported by our in-house engineer, you'd have to be a pretty good engineer to tell me that you thought something different than that, because we have to go forward to finish this project. And this is essentially an engineering deliverable here. They've got all of the plans and documents from the previous engineer, the work that they did, and if you've read it, you know that they are pointing out areas where they were deficient, didn't meet Bass DOT. And I've asked for in writing from Sue and her, and Bill is his name, collectively, individually, to get something in writing soon. By the end of the week, we'll have it. By next week, they'll both come out here, Green International and Sue, for a public meeting. And the engineers should do the talking on this, folks, because, again, I don't believe any of us are qualified with regard to whether their approach, when they're done, is the best one or not. When you've got 2, you could get 3. I mean, that would, for me, be my advice, go pay for a 3rd one if you don't think these 2 have got it right. But at some point, we've got to get started on finishing up that road surface down there, because it's in a condition that's gonna deteriorate. And if we've got our best chance, it's getting it now at our earliest opportunity when we've got a design complete. That's my viewpoint.
Mr. Burke.
I'm not gonna second guess Sue Carter. I'm not even gonna guess second guess our town administrator. And I'm glad, I didn't know there was gonna be a public meeting coming up. So I'm glad to hear that. I hope we get some notice of that. The point I'm trying to make here is, as a selectman, just like our colleague Ingeborg Hageman-Clark wanted to stop and figure out what she was signing, which I thought was prudent and a good idea. I want to get a handle on what's going on here.
So tell us what you need to know that report and these other engineers can't do, because I don't want to miss the one opportunity we've got. If you'd provide the list, and all of you would, of the things you don't know through that report that you want to know, I think providing it to the working group so that they can get their engineers to address it and be ready to address it at the meeting, because we have next week.
And this is the same kind of situation we were in last year. And I'm not saying it's the same reason or the same results will follow, but that we were in an awful rush last year before town meeting to get this project approved, and we didn't have numbers, and it was all
So
coming
what would you
into
like
last
to do
week.
with an
Yes.
alternative?
Let me finish,
Let's pull
okay.
it apart, tease it apart a little
So
bit.
what I'm saying here is, before I know what I need to see what you're gonna produce in this public meeting. And if we wanna
It's
go.
going to be that report.
Okay, and I'll take a look at that, and I'm not gonna second guess it. but I have an obligation to see
Right,
it.
so
And
read
then
it,
I
and
think
then
we
if
need
you've
to.
got questions.
Yeah, and then I think we might need to consider, do we need a third engineer's report? I don't know yet. I'm just talking about getting a handle on this process, and what the town administrator has outlined for town meeting is acceptable to me, as long as, once the town meeting vote is taken, we don't immediately spend that money, we just make sure that we're all in this, if not, I'll never be in the same situation as Ms. Eggman Clark and the town administrator regarding engineering, but at least that we're all up to speed. That's my only point.
But let's get a couple of parameters straight, because this is a very difficult situation.
Yeah.
And we have several constraints. We have, number one, brand new information that no one has had the time to assimilate, and everyone here, with the exception of Ingeborg, doesn't have the expertise to understand everything. Number two.
I want everyone to understand, I don't understand everything.
Sure.
Okay.
Right.
And I'm
You
not
understand
an
more than we
engineer,
do.
I just work with MassDOT
Got
a
it.
lot, so, okay.
Number two, we have a construction season that begins at a certain time and ends at a certain time. And physics says you probably can't have water damage to that road plus heavy traffic. You'll make what is there worse than it already is.
Do we know that?
Yes, for a fact.
Can't you feel it when you drive it? You notice all the little blends are breaking
No,
apart?
I know it's
a fair
suboptimal, but I need to see this in writing that it's a fact. Now, I need to, or at least I need to have some kind of explanation or it's fact. I trust you guys implicitly, but I'm not doing my
I
job.
would say that's not even an essential question here.
Okay,
It is a factor.
I mean, that's the answer to your question as best as we can do. Do we know that? Yes, we do, as far as we possibly can. It
It's
would
an
be a bit-
engineering certainty, it's not, this is.
And then the third parameter is the artificial deadline of town meeting. Artificial only from the sense, from an engineering point of view. So Brian, you're exactly right. There's a lot of unknowns out there and a lot of question marks, and we need to be cautious as we go forward. The town administrator has proposed a way to address that. Going forward at this town meeting and getting only the money we need for design money. Design meaning documents that will say exactly what we will do, and a bid on that from the engineering firm we have that will tell us exactly what we will pay. So that way, when we come back to town meeting in June at a special, it won't be estimates, it won't be guesswork, it won't be a range, it will be an exact figure, and everyone will know exactly what we are going to do.
It's not gonna be exact. There's always gonna be contingencies.
There's always gonna be contingencies, and yes.
A few other
change
facts that I
control.
think are important to know, that ET&L is our engineer. They've scheduled work for this project. And to the degree that it gets delayed or stopped, it's gonna cost us money. That's a fact.
Contractor, not engineer.
And so the only question we have is,
Contractor, not engineer.
Right.
so we're all trying to bring.
Mass DOT has already threatened to hold up our retainage because we've gone so long, and I can go through some others that are facts and known. There are some things that aren't knowable here.
Okay, but he is asking legitimate questions.
I know, and I'm just giving legitimate
Right.
answers.
The only problem is, the question for us right now, actually the question for the whole town, not necessarily just for this board, is there a better way to try to bring certainty to what is currently uncertain? I can't think of one.
And again, I'm not asking for certainty, I'm just asking to be brought up to speed on why everyone else thinks there's certainty. Now, I have not contradicted or rejected the town administrator's plan. I'm just hoping that as soon as possible after town meeting, we can get together and we can have that executive session, and we can review our options.
But the executive session
We don't
is
need
something
executive
completely
session for
different.
this.
I have reasons to suggest otherwise, but at this point, I'm not getting any traction here. So I think I've made my points on the record, and that's all I have to do at this point.
Ingeborg.
No,
Okay.
That was very unprofessional.
That was uncalled for.
It's her last
Well,
regular
looking at
meeting.
this- All right, so one question I had is whether any of our funds or any of the process moving forward would include what either an owner's rep capacity or a resident engineer capacity And is that potentially Sue who would do that? Or would it make sense that, I just don't know the process in the past with respect to biweekly team meetings, to check on everything, any request for information, how those are responded to, so that there's a continuous, to Brian's point, a continuous understanding by the boards that, yeah, there's some issues that are coming up, yep, we're dealing with it, we're looking at alternatives. I don't know how that.
So that was established back when we were having joint meetings
Yeah.
with the planning board.
Right.
Sue's intending to be the resident inspector and engineer, and that was established with your working group.
Okay.
That, unless there's reason to change that, again, you can hire a third engineer if you wish, but I just don't have any evidence.
No, I don't think that's not my question. My question is just, to Brian's point, we have a process.
We do.
Where there's check-ins, there's reviews, there's written documentation. Most times when there's an RFI, there's more than one way to answer those RFIs, that Sue would help us answer those RFIs.
Right, so you'll be part of that group that ensures that this due diligence for process is there, which is why the group is established.
And so that information can be brought back to this board. There can be an understanding as well as the group and the planning board. So I don't know if that helps you at all.
I'm sorry, I did not mean to interrupt. That's very reassuring. I'm looking forward to that. Again, it isn't a question of, I don't believe the process is being looked at. The board members have an independent responsibility to make sure that they're aware of how that process is working through. Well, I have great degree of confidence in the town administrator with the members of this working group. On the other hand, at some point, there's delegation and there's abdication. I just want to be brought up to speed, and then maybe there might be some things that we can consider, not from an engineering standpoint.
And technically, it needs to involve the planning board, because this is their project, not the selectmen's. And so that discussion should take place, and say you want joint board meetings because you want to be part of what otherwise would be their responsibility, leaving aside the legal, which is already you're involved in technically. And all I'm trying to do is get us going forward on what I know for a fact, if we don't, we're gonna regret the fact that we pass on the opportunity to keep this project going.
Mr. Ryan.
While I suppose philosophically, I agree with the proposal to, I'll say, get money at 2 town meetings, which I'm not thrilled about, but I understand it. Is there any downside, and do we have enough information and feel we would have enough control to say, look, we need to get this wrapped up by October. We're gonna ask for $1.2 million now. We're gonna cut it back to the bone, but it's not gonna go over that.
It's a big, I know.
I'm just throwing out a hypothetical.
It's a big ask, the town's just gulp.
Well, that was the initial approach. As soon as we got the number and we were blown out of the water, I said, okay, what?
That's just
So here are the choices. You go with the pre-designed amount, which is what's in that report, at $1 million plus or minus, depending on any of these, as you said.
Right.
Want to extend the sidewalk or refinish infiltration or whatever the hell it is, as opposed to the base, right? And because of the concerns that are being expressed tonight and have been and I think the forum last week, and the Finance Committee and Capital Planning Committee and all of us, look, none of us feel good about what's brought us here. I certainly don't, but at the same time, I don't want that we be so overly cautious that we stop the progress being made, because there are things we don't control, like ET&L, like Mass DOT. And I'm just saying to you that if we don't continue with deliberate speed on this, we've got a contractor that's decided for months to hang in there. And I'm just telling you, as he lines up his work for this year, what he's not gonna do is say, well, a few more months until you get it taken care of. He's gonna go do his other work with his subs and everything else and say, maybe we come back, maybe we don't. It's gonna cost you money, you know how this works, right? And I can't think of a better one. And that report, when you read it, if Sue backs that up technically and provides that as she's being asked to do, by the end of the week, your working group meets next week, that public meeting comes, those engineers are both gonna be there. They're gonna explain to you what they've done and why, and they're either persuasive or not. But as an engineering matter, I don't believe saying, well, we need more information from an engineering perspective. Now, it might be that we don't fully understand it. It might be that the cost estimates are such that until you finish the design, which we can't even finish design without more money. So I don't know quite what we're supposed to do, but I've offered what I think is the best and wisest approach with all the competing interests and needs, and there's not gonna be certainty. And when I use that term, there is nothing that is gonna be more direct and certain than the contract when he fills in those blanks on the change order.
Right.
Now, there might be some back and forth between our engineers and them on a unit cost or something. But there is nothing we're gonna get anywhere else in this industry that's gonna be more accurate than that. That's the real cost. It's like opening the bids. Once you open the bids, that's what he's put in there.
So I thought there were two basic problems with going with a really big number. One was that the moderator might think it was out of order. That's a very real
That's a possibility.
It's a very real possibility. And number two is that a lot of what the numbers are depends a lot on the options. If you look at this engineering report, a lot of it is options and alternatives, and the planning board's consulting engineer isn't even going to deliver a report advising them on those things until next Tuesday. So I'm not confident that they're even going to make decisions on what options they want by town meeting.
She should have it done by this week, by the way. They were talking about your meeting if you could get your working group next Tuesday, so you'll go through the report on it. And they were tentatively scheduling for next Thursday a public forum, which is 2 days after that, at which both engineers will be there. I don't think you're gonna find any uncertainty on the engineers. They're gonna have cleared that up.
Yeah.
Sue's been working with them already for several weeks. She's issued to them what she wants answers to. They just haven't come back yet.
But as the planning board, will they have decided which options and alternatives they want, and
They don't have to determine those now. What you'll do is build in the engineering that they've already preliminarily identified. And what I would argue is that engineeringly, you estimate the cost of those additional, because there's not what you'd call a lot of engineering involved in extending the sidewalk, flattening the radius out, and all the rest. Now, whether they'll decide in advance of design being finished that they want to buy those or not, I don't know, but they don't have to. When we come back, after the prices have been put in, you can decide on, you'll know the prices of the ad alternates, let's say,
at a second town meeting.
at the second town meeting.
I think what Tom's asking you is, would you advocate for just one town meeting, biggest number possible?
Yeah, I know that's where we were. And so a convoluted way of saying, when I was thinking about all the questions and concerns that have been brought up, including tonight, and the uncertainty of it, I was trying to increase the probability of success that night. And also knowing that, what if it goes down?
I mean, I just figure we gotta do design first anyway, right? So you get the money for design, you do the design, yes, you're gonna lose, let's say, a week or two when you have your, there's, I guess design's done and you can't start construction yet. But you have your town meeting, you show everybody, here's what the design is, here's what the change orders are, this is it, yes or no?
We're gonna try to position the timing of the special town meeting in advance of the completion, as long as we've got so we don't lose. Right now, they can't start work until design's complete in any event. Now, the problem is that I don't know we have enough money without some appropriation at the annual town meeting to even complete design. But having said that, when it's complete, so the construction estimate that ET&L and Green will be working on is there's some what-ifs in there. And so what I was trying to say is that we can minimize any downtime to ET&L to the degree that we can say, okay, both ET&L, Sue, and Green are in agreement that within 2 weeks, we're gonna be ready to go. So 3 weeks out, we plan the town meeting, so there's only a week or 10 days maybe where there's downtime, so we're not stretching ET&L out to the point that he's gonna start doing the yips on us.
Well, and that was my only thing. That's basically one of the main things I was thinking of, is that if we go to town meeting, we ask for the big chunk of money, we gotta do something with it. We can't leave it the way it is. It's gonna deteriorate, and we'll be pouring money into it by the bucket load, you know, year after year, if we don't finish it right. So the thing is, do we bite the bullet and, you know, and make sure, you know, we tell, is ET&L gonna be willing to hang around for a few weeks till we take a second town meeting vote?
Well, that's what they're being asked right now.
Right.
And if the answer is, well, we will, but we can't guarantee results, and we're gonna charge you a premium, because
But-
they wanted to start already
Right.
last winter.
But the thing is, that's part of my point, is that if they're guaranteed the work 2 weeks from now, right? Is it going to eventually cost us less than if we have to string them along for another
Yeah,
month or so?
we're paying for
We're
the
gonna pay
extra
extra for it.
But I would worry more about them just not being able to even ensure that they'll be back at a certain time.
And the
you know?
thing is,
And
that's my
gets
point.
supplies, stock.
You know,
So we're trying to get that question answered, and we will by town meeting.
Mhm.
So, but it would have not changed the fact that if we need the 1.2 million, or people decide, and ET&L says, tell you the truth, we wanted to walk away last October.
Mhm.
We've been put through the winter on this. We've been blocking out time. We wanted to get started in March or April,
Mhm.
and now we're going out to May or June. They might say, you know what, it's been a fun ride, but we're done. If you don't get the money that you think it's gonna cost at this annual town meeting,
Mhm.
well, then we're stuck in any event where we would be regardless of this option, because we've got 500 on the books in the warrant, and we gotta go in there and make a motion that doubles it.
So I wanna make a suggestion. We have a few other things to do tonight, and then we have a discussion about our annual town meeting warrant recommendations. I think this topic will come up again then, so we'll have more time to discuss it. I don't wanna cut off anyone's questions for the town administrator, but I wonder if we should move on. My inclination is that we should.
I have great faith in Bill's scheduling and foresight on projects like this. If he, you know, I just wanted to bring it up that.
Yeah, no,
You know, do we try to get it all at once now and take some of the uncertainty off the table, because doing nothing is not an option. And I don't wanna get into an analysis paralysis and be sitting here in October going, oh man, we missed another year.
So let's get back to our agenda.
No, I agree with you, and that's where I was, and we're gonna find out from
Yeah.
ET&L whether they're in agreement to work through out to a certain deadline, you know.
All right, let's, thank you, Bill. Let's get back to our agenda, finish up some matters, and then probably come back to this.
I don't want to.
All right. Bicycles Battling Cancer Ride, June 9th.
Didn't do that.
We have, oh, by the way, I should explain to my colleagues, Maureen did the minutes for April 9th. Unfortunately, the minutes were not on the agenda. I think they got bumped because of the executive session. So we'll be asked to approve the minutes for April 9th and this meeting, and maybe even one other, at our very short meeting before town meeting. Bicycles Battling Cancer, do I have a motion?
Okay,
This is a ride done every year.
Yeah.
Public safety signed off on it.
I move to approve the use of town public ways for bicycling battling cancer ride through Stow on Sunday, June 9th, 2019.
Ms. Hickman Clark, please second.
She's
She
not
left.
there.
Oh, she left. Then I'll have to second.
Motion made and seconded to approve the use of town public ways for, can I read that? For the Bicycles Battling Cancer charity bike ride on Sunday, June 9th, 2019. Further discussion? Seeing here none, all those in favor, signify by saying aye.
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 Aye, and that is approved unanimously. special liquor license for Decibels Foundation Golf Tournament. This is one done every year.
Mr. Chairman, I move to approve and sign a special one-day liquor license for the Decibels Foundation for a golf tournament to be held at the Wedgewood Pines Country Club on Monday, June 17th, 2019, between 10 a.m. and 6 p.m.
Second for the purposes of discussion. Have we gotten all the proper documents?
Do we have all the necessary approvals for this,
Yes.
Maureen? Okay, so, motion made and seconded to approve special one-day liquor license for Decibels Foundation for golf tournament held at Wedgewood Pines Country Club, Monday, June 17th, 2019, between 10 and 6. Further discussion? Seeing and hearing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye, and that is approved unanimously. And that, I think, brings us to our discussion and vote on the annual town meeting warrant articles. Reminder to the board, we have, and I'd like to FinCom, we have no obligation to make recommendations, but we can if we want. We have been sent final copy of the warrant. Let me ask, does anybody have any warrant articles other than the Lower Village thing that they want to discuss or make a recommendation on? Seeing and hearing nothing.
Not at this time.
And of course, we will have, okay. Lower Village. May I assume that it is the pleasure of the board to postpone a vote on this, since we don't even have a number until the night before town meeting?
I would suggest we do that.
All right.
And really, to my point, I would be willing to go forward with the big number that I don't like, just to make sure that we can do something. But at that point, I am going to want assurances that we're not, that, you know, that we've eliminated any scope creep.
So, you know, to your point, and in a way, this is the same point I think Mr. Burke was making. I'm not so sure I would do that. I mean, I mean, me personally. You know, it's one thing if you ask me, how am I gonna vote on town meeting floor? We gotta do what we gotta do. But for me to stand up and say that I support something, I feel that I need to understand it at some minimal level and be able to answer questions on it. And if we go with the smaller number, I feel like I can do that. If we go with the larger number, unless we get a lot more information between now and then, I don't feel like I can do that.
And you know, it's, I don't disagree with you.
Okay.
How's that?
That's fine. So Ingeborg, we went through some of the smaller things. We're now on recommendations for town meeting warrant articles. I asked first if anybody has any warrant articles other than Lower Village that they want to discuss or make recommendations on. Nobody else did, do you?
No.
Okay. And we're now
Back to where I left.
we're now taking up Lower Village, and I started off by saying, I'm assuming it's the board's pleasure to wait until the night of our meeting before town meeting, because we don't even have a number, but, and Tom just made the point that he'd actually maybe even go for the largest number right now, but I at least am hesitant to do that.
I actually agree with you.
He's
I would
drawing
much,
that
I would much rather see what we've got, prior to town meeting, and, you know, like I say, it's.
And Mr. Burke, do you agree with that?
Yes, I agree with the chair and Mr. Ryan.
All right, then I think we're done with that. I do want to say on this, before we leave this subject of Lower Village altogether, if anyone, Mr. Burke or anyone, has a subject that they want to discuss in executive session other than the potential litigation, please let me know. Okay? Something they think is appropriate for executive session, please let me know. Liaison reports. Does anybody feel like giving liaison? I think the, I think.
We never feel like giving them, but I don't feel like giving one tonight. How's
I
that?
think Selectman Wrigley can return to orange. Are you chair yet? What's taking you so long?
He's got bad guidance, a bad example.
Bad leadership.
They tell me I can't even help handle problems in Stow, let alone try to be the chair.
Ooh, that's not fair.
All right,
All
good
right,
night.
take
Have a
care.
nice trip, Phil.
Liaison, Mr. Burke.
As I said, nothing.
Okay, I have been spending a lot of time on this Lower Village thing. Complete Streets is meeting Thursday. I think we're gonna examine whether to go forward with the $50,000 item. I personally am not in favor of pilot projects. There's a small amount of that, the contract administration of projects we're gonna be doing. Other than that, I don't have a lot. Mr. Ryan?
No.
And Ms. Hageman?
Nothing, nothing that I haven't already reported on about SNOP or Concom, so.
All right, thank you. Is there a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
Second. Second, that is unanimous.
Anytime you told me before, and you tell me 6:15,
Oh.
6:30, I mean, we can talk about it, but
Well, while everybody's here.